to my Interpersonal Communications project from Liberty University Studies in Interpersonal Communication, HSCO 508. My name is MarQuitia Edmonds, and as I've traveled through this course, I have gained a better understanding about myself, others, and how people communicate effectively and ineffectively, and the reason behind the two, and the things that I can do to bring growth to my relations when it comes to communicating. As you click on the next slide, you'll be able to gain more knowledge about my background and the benefits this classroom has had for me. I was born in Virginia, the fifth child of seven to my single mother, and she also adopted three children. I was my father's only child, and at 11 I gained a relationship with the Lord. At 16, I became a mother, graduated from high school 2 years later, and had my son, and actually went to college, but was forced to drop out because of financial situation and other things. And from that point, I endured a tough life and moved from dangerous project to the next with my two children. Years later, I found my calling was to be a foster care worker. So I went back to college, graduated summa cum laude, and defied all odds. Today, I'm a family services worker for social services, and I will be moving out the projects for the first time in my adult life. When it comes to growth and communication, I've been able to establish goals um, in order to work towards them. On the next slide, you will see more in depth about my goals. As a woman of God, I feel like growth is continual and necessary in order for God to use me, in order for His plan for my life to be fulfilled. I know that I need to control my emotions and speak up for myself. At more times than others, I'm shy and I kind of don't like stressful situations, so I avoid them. Consequently, I go with the flow, even if it makes me unhappy. In relationships, I've noticed that I try and express myself 6 months down the line instead of developing healthy communication in the beginning, which is very important. The next slide will go in more in depth about enlarging conversations with others, which is very important. 3 ways that you can enlarge a conversation is by being inquisitive, seeking awareness, and gaining clarity. These things are not always foolproof, and like everything else, there can be barriers or stumble stones. The next slide will show you a little bit about the results from my self-awareness quiz, and it explains how I communicate. One side, it tells you what people think about me, and the other side, it tells you how I really am. People think I'm balanced, laid back, not threatening, and a bit submissive, when in fact I'm empathetic. I go by the rules, I don't respond well to challenges, and I like security. As an ISC type, people tend to see me as inspiring and impressing, and they think that I have a way with my words and my emotions. But in fact, my emotions are up and down most of the time, and I feel like I always need to fix things. My personality type proves that I am definitely one to overanalyze things. I am humble, and I benefit from balance in my life. I agree that I need to work on building myself up where I'm not comfortable and trusting more in God and allowing balance to be in my life. Burley Allen explains, we lack skills as listeners for many reasons, some personal and some more universal. They have to do with our childhood experiences, formal training, psychological limitation, and socialized attitudes. As we move to the next slide, we'll explore more about these barriers. 3 barriers that I find that complicates things for me are somatic, vulnerability, and emotions. After watching Fireproof, I even noticed that I tend to do what they do and try to communicate properly later on in the relationship when I needed to have done that from the beginning. Somatic barriers, Burley Allen explains it as no two people have exactly the same meaning for the same word or expression, which is true. When it comes to vulnerability, Stewart says something that I can really relate to. He says that some people make it relatively easy for people to lie to them or others for people to lie to them. And I think that sometimes I do. Last, dealing with emotional barriers. My emotions are a big part of how I communicate, so that's something I definitely need to work on. I need to work harder on coming up with a happy medium with myself. That it's okay for people to say things that do not make me happy. As you move to the next slide, we will explore internal and external barriers that block my communication. Internally, I struggle with emotions, my past, listening deeper. And externally, I struggle more with things like people talking softer or not talking loud enough, loud noises, and other distractions like room temperature. A solution that I can be used to help me with these barriers is to surround myself with more therapeutic people and to know and have knowledge of the things that do affect me. Things I need to work on is not giving everything a reaction because everything does not deserve a reaction. In Proverbs 18, 21, it states that the tongue has power of life and death. And Burley Allen states that often when people become cautious of how they talk to themselves, they are shocked at the negative tone of their internal dialogue. And that's very true. The tongue is very important, and we have to watch that we don't use our heart and our mind to just speak things and give ourselves time. According to Gabriel Morby, meditation is an important important form of self control and a healthy practice. And I think that that's really true as well. Because when we meditate, there's a part of our brain that's awakened that's usually not awakened. Um, and also, according to Professor Gerfman, outcomes, there are a part of the human brain that is awakened when a religion is practiced. So that's kind of, validating that. On the next two slides, we will discuss my plan of action. My goal for my life is to become the woman that God wants me to be. I know that how I communicate determines a great deal of my happiness. Stewart explains it as he states the quote, one of the basic assumptions is there is a direct link between the quality of your life, the quality of your communication and the quality of your life. We not only communicate with others, people have to realize we communicate with Christ as well. And that's very monumental. I need to continue to work towards beginning stages of the interpersonal relationships with others, as I've stated several times in this video. The beginning seems to be where I hold back the most, and I want to please more. Even though I'm not, I'm sticking to the facts and I'm not being fake, I still seem to want to please more. I think that it would benefit me a great deal being more brave and, dealing with stressful things head on and trusting God when I do them things. In the Bible, we know that God wants us to fear nothing, and I must learn to step out on faith. One big thing in my plan is for me to allow other people, for me to allow other people the choice of changing or not changing their behavior. And that is okay if they decide to change or not change their behavior. I just need to let them know what their choices, words, actions, decisions, um, affect me, how they affect me, and what I will do. And I need to stay in my grounds and do what I need to do as far as that. In fact, that goes back to me needing to be and stay brave. I have specific intentions, and I have the right to those intentions as well. I can do this empathetically as I need to expect that they're going to have a reaction back to what I say, whether that's good or bad, and that's okay as well. I will modify my behavior gradually and continue to educate myself because as my communication changes, so does the next step. Also, my goals may need to be altered. Peterson states that if you're not trying to endure some pain as a listener, then it's better off that you try not to be one. I need to grasp the balance and learn to feel not so caught off guard when things aren't said in the manner in which I want to hear. Stewart states that expressing oneself can be difficult and trying, but it gives a relationship a chance to change and become stronger. I know that if something is not done in the beginning, a downward spiral is likely to occur. Last, Burley Allen gave some good advice. He stated that listening to yourself is an important element of listening process that is often neglected. People don't realize the power they have over their own behavior. And that is very, very true. By identifying non-productive internal dialogue, we can re-examine the belief that causes a particular thought process that takes me back to the bad and undesirable as well as the good things that has happened in my life and that how they affect the way that I communicate. This is something that I will also need to work on. Once again, I need to continue to work to better myself. As a Christian woman, I know that the devil will constantly put barriers in my way. And the battlefield of the mind is a really big aspect of that. When we think negative, sometimes our response will be negative off bat without anything else. And then there are trigger words that also come upon. So I just think that if I stay in prayer, I meditate, and I do the will of God, that I will continue to grow and I continue to educate myself, that I will be a better listener. Thank you very much.